Trump's tariff talk sends global markets lower. Well, investors sold stocks and bought dollars as the prospect of an all-out trade war starts to become more and more likely. US tariffs on Mexican, Canadian and Chinese goods are set to kick in tomorrow, but Trump now has his eyes on Europe. Well, let's talk to Anna Macdonald, investment manager at Aubrey Capital Management. Anna, Trump has also said overnight that tariffs would definitely happen with the European Union. So are we heading for a full-scale trade war here?
Well, it looks that way to some extent. I mean, we don't really know yet how much, when we try to disaggregate what's being done for economic purposes and what's being done to try and make these other countries do things that Trump wants. We don't really know how that's going to play out yet. Canada and Mexico have talked about retaliatory tariffs. So that would imply a certain kind of escalation. But we did see that escalation that Colombia put up last week rapidly disintegrate, and there was some kind of agreement found. I mean, certainly Trump's been talking about the trade deficit that the US has with Europe. So he seems quite keen to rattle some cages in Europe. And that's being sensed in the stock market reaction today. But this is still early stages. We don't know how much is bluster. We don't know what the effect will be if these tariffs do go through, inflation starts to rise, GDP starts to fall in the US. That could then initiate some other responses from the Trump administration.
Let me pick up on one thing you mentioned there, and that's the market reaction. It's perhaps understandable that things like crypto and stocks would slump, but the Japanese yen as well. Why do you think that's happened?
I think it's generally just dollar strength. If inflation goes up in the US because of tariffs, increasing prices for US consumers, and actually inflation will go up globally. But I think it's the Federal Reserve will be cautious about cutting rates. That's going to lead to dollar strength. Several economists are already talking about the effect of tariffs in Mexico, China and Canada being damaging to their GDP, so that those currencies are probably going to fall in response.
Now, does this mean that inflation has made a comeback then?
It could do. Again, it's still early stages. There's so many complex things to think about with tariffs. For example, I remember reading that in some situations, a car seat will go across the Mexican-US border 7 times. Does that mean there's going to be 7 lots of tariffs applied? So it's very hard to see exactly what those inflationary impacts are going to be. And so therefore, we could see inflation making an impact. We might also see demand falling for lots of goods. So it's still early stages, but the general view is that tariffs are inflationary.
So how does this impact on central banks? We hear from the Bank of England later this week. Do you think this will make any impact on their decision?
I think they're going to be acting on the data that they see in front of them. We're anticipating a 25 basis point fall from 4.75 to 4.5%. And that's one of 2 cuts that are being priced in by the market for 2025. The UK is in a very different situation from the US. We've got really anemic growth. It's really stalled. So therefore, we expect the Bank of England response is to try and loosen some of the monetary conditions.
That was Anna Macdonald from Aubrey Capital Management. And don't forget, you get more videos like this one on Reuters.com.